Hi guys, thank you so much for attending our Kicking It Old School Classroom series. I'm Brianna Davis with internationalstudent.com, and today we're going to be discussing working in the US as an international student on an F1 visa. So you might have been a little bit confused as to what options you have whenever it comes to if you can actually work in the US as an international student. And I'm here to say that you do have a few options. So we're going to look at those 5 different options, but keep in mind that you're still going to have to apply for them, so it's not something that's guaranteed, but they are there just in case you'd like to see them. Also, if you've been talking to a immigration attorney or your international student office, please keep talking to them. They know your situation best, but if you're just starting, if you're really just beginning to get into this whole international student thing, then this is a good place to start. These are 5 good areas that you'll want to keep in mind if you do need a little bit of extra help whenever it comes to finances. All right, so let's go ahead and get started on the first one, on-campus employment. So on-campus employment is exactly as it sounds. It's working on campus. Now, working on campus, it's going to be one of the more flexible options. You don't have to get approval through the USCIS. So it's going to be a very, not easy, but it's going to be one of the more simpler processes whenever it comes to finding employment. Now, one of the hurdles with that is every other international student is going to see that as one of the more easy options to working on campus. So you might have a lot of competition whenever it comes to finding on-campus employment, but it's still going to be a good outlet if you need a little bit of extra funding. So let's go ahead and take a look at a few things that you'll want to keep in mind whenever it comes to on-campus employment. All right, so the first one, you must keep a valid F1 status, of course. That's to be assumed. It's going to be assumed in all of these you'll see, but you have to keep that valid F1 status. Next, how much can you work? So if you are a part-time if you're in session, if school's in session, then you can work part-time, which means you can work 20 hours per week. Now, during breaks, such as Christmas or Thanksgiving break, you're more than likely going to be allowed a little bit more time in order to work. It could be all the way up to 40 hours per week. This might vary depending on your school, but usually you'll get a little bit more time that you can work during those vacation times. And then next, you must not displace a U.S. resident. So what that means is you are not able to, have that position if it means that it's taking away a position, a job from a U.S. resident. So that's something that you'll have to keep in mind. So on-campus employment, those are a few things that you'll want to keep in mind. With on-campus employment, you're really not getting any career training. It's not going to be like some of the other options that we're discussing. But if you need a little bit of extra funding, it is a good option. All right, so let's go ahead and take a look at the second option, which is OPT, which is Optional Practical Training. Now, I'm sure that a lot of you are familiar with what OPT is. For those of you who are not, essentially it's going to give you a little bit of training for your future career. So this can be off campus, and we're going to dive right into a few of the items that you'll want to keep in mind. So let's take a look at those items. All right, so first of all, you have to have a valid F1 visa, like the other options. Second, related to your field of study. So it can't just be some off-campus job, such as, maybe a grocery store clerk or a waitress, unless they apply directly to your industry. It has to apply directly to what you're going to be studying. Now, this might seem like a hurdle at first, but really this is going to be great news for you because it gives you that extra training. Plus, it's going to be a great resume builder. All right, third on the list, apply before degree completion. So whenever you participate in OPT, you can either participate while you are still pursuing your degree, or you can participate after. If you decide that you want to participate in OPT once you graduate, that's fine. You can apply for that, but you have to apply before your degree is completed. So make sure that you get that in before your degree is done. And keep in mind, if you already have an employer lined up, someone who says, I want you to work for me during your OPT once you graduate, I want you to be there, the day after. Keep in mind that it can take up to 90 days for your OPT to be approved. So make sure that you look at that time limit and when you're going to be starting that OPT and plan accordingly. All right, fourth on the list, consider your CPT. So we have not yet gone over CPT, which we will, but CPT it's going to be something that you want to consider. If you participate in CPT during your studies, if you participate full-time for 12 months, then you will not be able to participate in OPT. So just keep that in mind. If you're doing 12 months full-time CPT, you will not be able to do OPT. Next on the list, we have 12 months maximum. So you can participate in a total of 12 months maximum of full-time OPT. So you can divide this up. You can have a little bit of part-time, a little bit of full-time, or you can do all part, all full. But what this really, what you want to keep in mind is if you, for example, do 6 months part-time OPT while you are studying, you're only going to have 9 months of full-time OPT. Now, the reasoning behind that is for every month of part-time OPT, it counts for half of a month for full-time OPT. So if you do 6 months of part-time OPT, once again, you would have 9 months of that full-time OPT that you'd be able to do. So 12 months maximum of full-time OPT. Sixth on the list, the hours that you can work. If you are in session, if school's in session, you can do 20 hours per week. If perhaps you do your OPT after you've graduated, you can do 40 hours per week. Now, just as a little side note, you have 12 months of OPT that you can participate in for each degree that you receive. So if you receive your undergraduate degree, you can get 12 months of OPT. If you go and receive your graduate degree, you can receive 12 months of OPT. So that's pretty nice that you have the flexibility there. All right, so that is OPT. Let's go ahead and take a look at our next option. All right, so the next one we have on here is CPT. And what CPT, if you're not familiar with that, often we have students who are not quite as familiar with CPT sometimes. That's curricular practical training. And just like OPT, CPT is going to give you some job experience. So it's going to be something that's relevant to the industry that you're pursuing. So it's going to be nice to give you that experience. It'll be a great resume builder. Plus, you get a little bit of extra funding in there to help you with your financial needs. So let's go ahead and take a look at some things you'll want to keep in mind with CPT. All right, so like all the other ones, valid F1 status. No question about that. Second on the list, we have enrolled full-time for 1 year. So you have to have been enrolled in school for 1 year before you can participate in your CPT. So don't expect to come over and be able to participate in CPT right away. You have to have that 1 year under your belt. Next, we have directly related. So you have to find, just like on OPT, you have to find a position that is directly related to the field that you are studying. Once again, that can seem like a hassle at first, but really it's going to be in the best interest for you. And then fourth, job offer. So in order to participate in CPT, you have to have had a job offer from an employer. So whenever you get approved for your CPT, you can't just get approved and then go work for anyone. You have to go work for that individual that gave you that job offer. So keep that in mind. And then fifth on the list, we have the hours of work that you can, work per week. It's going to be 20 if you are part-time, of course, and then 40 if you're full-time. So it's along the same lines as the other options. Just to kind of go back, to number 3, they're directly related. So it has to be directly related to the field that you're studying, but it also has to be part of your program. So it has to be, said in your program that in order to graduate, you have to have fulfilled these CPT requirements. So that's going to be part of it as well. So keep that in mind. Okay, so let's go ahead and take a look at our fourth. It's severe economic hardship. So you might be thinking, oh, that's me. I have severe economic hardship. I want to become an international student, and that's my way that I'm going to fund my studies. But that's not how it works. So severe economic hardship means that you once had these funds, you were able to pay for it, but then something happened, and you no longer can afford the fees that you have. So it's sort of a turn of events that happen that's making you face this severe hardship. Now you can apply for this, but it's very, very difficult to get approved. So keep in mind, just because you apply, it unfortunately does not mean that you get approved for this. But if you are faced with this situation while you're an international student, then this is an option. You can apply for this in order to have an off-campus job. So let's go ahead and take a look at a few of the requirements, a few details of this. All right, so valid F1 status for at least 1 year and in good academic standing. So as I already mentioned, this isn't something that you can expect to come over to the US and study and be able to have an off-campus job based upon severe economic hardship. You'd have to be here for at least 1 year, be in good academic standing. Second, show that on-campus employment is not available or sufficient. So you're going to have to show that you already tried to go through the route of getting an on-campus job and that there's none available, or perhaps it's not going to be enough. So you're going to have to show that you meet that requirement. And then third, provide evidence of hardship. So what are some examples of hardship? So you can see there, I put just a couple up there. We have a few more also on internationalstudent.com, or you can also go, there to internationalstudent.com and get a few more examples. But one we have on here, loss of financial aid or on-campus employment without fault of your own. So you've lost your job, you previously had an on-campus job and you've lost it, not because you weren't showing up on time or not doing your job, but for some other reason you lost that position that you were, counting on to help you fund the different things that you need funding for. So that's one example. Another one is a huge fluctuation in the value of currency or exchange rate. So perhaps you have all these funds in your bank account, but then your home currency takes a dive and your money is just not what it used to be worth. It's not stretching. It's not going as far as what it used to. So this is one other example. And then the third one that we have here is unexpected changes in the financial condition of the individual that's helping to support you. So perhaps your family is your main source of funding. They're really helping you with your aid. And maybe your father becomes very ill. There's lots of medical bills. And they're just not able to support you in the way that they were before. So this might be one example of hardship that you might face. Now, once again, you can apply. It's not guaranteed that you'll get this, unfortunately. It'd have to be approved through the USCIS and through your International Student Office. And your International Student Office can help you with this. If you think that this really does apply to you, if you meet all that criteria, go to your International Student Office and they can help evaluate your situation a bit more and help you with the steps that you need to take in order to apply for this. Also, as a side note, this can take up to 12 weeks to be approved. So if it's a really huge, dire financial crisis that you're in, keep in mind that it can take up to 12 weeks for this to actually go through, and you might not get approved even then. All right, so let's go ahead and take a look at our last option here, and that is employment through an international organization. So once again, it's just as it sounds. There are certain organizations, certain international organizations that it's okay to work through as an international student. You can find this list on internationalstudent.com under the Working in the U.S. section, or you can go to the State Department site and they have these all listed as well. But let's go ahead and dive right into these and look a little bit deeper as to what you'd have to have. So you would have to have a position that falls within your degree pursuit. So it must be a position within the scope of the organization's sponsorship. Next, it has to be a directly related position. So once again, it must relate directly to the industry that you're pursuing. And then third on there, you, of course, like all of the other options, you have to have a valid F1 status. And then your past, you have to have your first year under your belt, and you have to be in good academic standing. So you'll have to have all of those on the list. Now, just as a little side note as well, if you are employed through this option, it's not going to take away from your OPT. So that's kind of a benefit to working in this fifth category, is you can still have the option of OPT once you graduate as well. So that's just something to consider. But through this option, you'll still have to have approval through the USCIS and through your International Student Office Department, like always. So All right, these are the 5 different categories. Hopefully, these will help you a little bit if you're really wondering, once I get to the U.S., I'm an international student, am I going to be able to work at all? These are just 5 different areas that you want to consider. Now, while most of them will require approval through the USCIS and your international student office, keep in mind that on-campus employment does not require that USCIS. Okay, it's just the International Student Office approval that you'll need to seek through that. So keep that in mind. Now let's go ahead and turn to some of the questions that you guys have sent in. All right, first one we have from Kids Hero. Let's see, why aren't most universities offer part-time jobs? Let's see, you have a few questions here, so I'll address them each individually. So it sounds like your school doesn't have a whole lot of part-time jobs. And, I can understand your frustration. You have that on-campus employment option. If there's not a whole lot of options available, that can be very stressful because then you have to look to other options which require a little bit more approval and work. So, unfortunately, we're not able to say as to why your university doesn't have any more. Perhaps you can talk to your international student office. Sometimes they do have office assistants. If they don't already, maybe that's an option that they could look into to help you out with an on-campus employment option. How much minimum payment for an international student for 1 hour? Well, really, that's going to vary depending on the states. Now, Florida, we're here based out of Florida. In Florida, the minimum wage it's almost $8. It's just under $8. It's about $7.93, I believe. But that's going to vary depending on your state. So you'll want to do a quick check of that, and you'll be able to see very quickly what the minimum salary is. All right. What happens when someone works without permission of the university? Well, if you work without the approval that you need, that could be grounds for not complying with your F1. So you could essentially get your F1 taken away. So you'll want to make sure that you comply with everything that you need to be complying with. You don't want to work if you're not approved to work, because that essentially can mean that you're not able to study in the U.S. any longer. All right, we have a question from Shim. I want to get admissions for my postgraduate degree in technology. How do I get admissions and also work at the same time? So to get admissions, you're going to have to find the school that you'd like to attend, and then you're going to have to apply. Now we have, if you go to international student, if you're not sure what school you'd like to attend, go to internationalstudent.com. You can search through all the schools in the U.S. You can see if they have that program that you're after. So you'll have to find that school first of all, and then you'll have to apply directly through that school. Now, whenever it comes to the work options that they have, you'd have to go directly through your school. A great place to start would be to ask them about what kind of on-campus employment options they do have. All right, Matthew, I'm an international student and I don't have enough money to pay for it. Can I have your help? Matthew, this is a very common question. Unfortunately, tuition is very expensive, so we have a number of students who are in the exact same boat. So first of all, don't feel like you're alone. There's a number of students who do need aid. A great place to start is through scholarships. We have on internationalstudent.com, you can search for scholarships. There's also international student loan options. You can see if your school is approved to work with one of our lenders. And then, something else that you might want to do is contact your school directly. Sometimes they do have school-based scholarships that they are able to offer. So, contact your school for scholarships, go to internationalstudent.com, search for scholarships and loans. Those are all great options if you are looking for aid. And then once again, if you need just a little bit more cash flow to help with minor expenses, then you might want to consider on-campus employment if you're eligible. Okay, so we have a question here. It says, I am a Nigerian. One of my aspirations in life is to study in the US, but I need a job on campus to support me. Okay, so yeah, just because you're Nigerian, it doesn't mean that you're not able to come to the US and study and to have an on-campus job. You would have to go through the steps just like anyone else. You need to find a school. in the US. So you can go to internationalstudent.com, do a school search, find a school that fits your needs, and then apply directly through that school. Once you do apply, then you'll be able to, or actually once you find the school, you'll be able to see what employment options they do have. But then once you actually apply and are approved, you'll be able to get a little bit more insight as to what options you would really have. Okay, next question. The U.S. Embassy used to deny people for their F1 visa at times. Why? You know, getting denied for your F1 visa, it can vary greatly across the board. We have a hangout that we did, our last on-air hangout. It addresses getting approved for your F1 visa, just a few tips during the interview process. So you might want to go check that out. If you go to internationalstudent.com, you'll see all of our hangouts on there. Or if you just use the search bar, you can type in F1 visa and it'll come up for you. But really, they can deny it based upon a lot of things. You know, really, they would be the best ones to ask that. That way, you can try to change whatever it was that they denied you upon. Perhaps you didn't have enough funds or something like that to try to go back and seek that approval a second time. So they should have informed you of that. But if not, you know, go to internationalstudent.com. View the hangout. That'll give you just a little bit of tips on how you can pass that F1 visa interview. Okay, it is read that scholarships and other financial grants are very minimal in the U.S. What are the funding opportunities apart from research assistantships? Yes, so you know there's not going to be a whole lot of institutions that are willing to just hand out a lot of funding, unfortunately. But that's not to say that there's not any. There's actually a lot of scholarships that are available and that are available to international students. It's just going to be a matter of finding them. It takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of work to actually find a scholarship that you're eligible for. So go to internationalstudent.com, filter through all of the scholarships, find ones that you are eligible for, and then spend a little bit of time to really apply to each one of those. You know, I mentioned before we had a hangout on F1 visas. We have one as well on finding an international scholarship, and that will offer you a lot of great tips too whenever it comes to searching for a scholarship, what to do whenever you find one that you want to apply for, and then it gives you a lot of organizational tips as well. That way you can be better equipped to handle applying for scholarships. All right, our next question. Can I get a half-time job in some office during my master's studies? So it sounds like you're asking, can you get an on-campus job? And if you're approved through your international student office, then yes, you can. Of course, you'd have to be able to meet the regulations that we went over, and it's going to be up to your international student office to give you that final approval. But it is most definitely an option to work on campus. Okay. All right, so let's see. We have just a couple more questions on here. Once again, if you have any questions, please send them in now. We're going to get through those, but you know, hopefully we'll be able to get to all of your questions. If not, we'll answer them later. But please send those in now. That way we can get to them right now and have those answered for you right away. So we have on here, how is the wage average for part-time job? So once again, the part-time, the salary, the wage, the average wage, it's going to vary by state. Florida, it's just under $8. We're here in Florida, it's going to be about $7.93, but it's going to vary depending on where you are actually studying. And actually, if you just do a quick Google search of, you know, average salary in list your state, you know, New Jersey, New York, wherever, and it should give you what that average wage is. So it's pretty simple to find if you just go to Google. That should help you out a little bit. All right. I'm an international student at UDEL. Is OPT for STEM programs 29 months? Also, many U.S. companies don't know the laws surrounding OPT and are reluctant to get international students. How can we educate the employers? So you are correct. There are certain instances where you can apply for an extension to OPT, and STEM is one of them. So you are most definitely correct. You can have a longer stint of OPT if you are within that STEM program. Now, in order to have employers say that they will hire you, unfortunately, I would just say educate them as much as possible. You might want to contact your international student office and see if they have any materials for your employers that they can give to them. That way they are just as well equipped as possible with all of the information surrounding employing you on OPT. So contact your international student office and see if they have any materials or advice, or maybe if they'll contact their employers for you or give you some talking points in order to better educate them and make them feel a little bit more confident in employing you for OPT. All right, so many universities' fees differ. The fee difference between MIT and Wichita State University, there's a lot of difference. Is there a problem if we attend a less expensive university which doesn't have much recognition? That's a great question. So, there's kind of a lot of dispute on this, but at the end of the day, it's really going to depend on what is the degree that you personally have. So you can have a piece of paper that says, I have a degree from this excellent top-rated school, but if you're not able to, have the knowledge to really excel in your career and bring that employer something to the table, then that's just going to be pretty much as good as not even having a degree. So it's going to be what you make of your degree and how much you get out of it. So, of course, you can look at rankings all day, and while it's great to kind of look at those, you need to also consider what kind of training am I going to be getting? What kind of knowledge am I going to be getting? And that's going to help you as well. Now, it sounds like you're trying to find a school. We have a lot of hangouts also on trying to find the best school for you. We have information on public versus private schools and all kinds of different information to help you find the best school that fits within your budget as well. So the answer is short and sweet. No, you don't have to go with the most expensive school in order to find a great job. You can go with a school that costs a little bit less and still get a really great education. Okay. Is working, let's see. All right, yeah. Actually, I don't think we have any more questions. I apologize. We did actually already go over that one. Looks like we don't have any more. So hopefully we got all of your questions answered. If not, please feel free. You can send us a message afterwards, and we'll get that answered for you as well. If your question maybe was overlooked or something today, perhaps you got it in just a little bit too late before, we ended the hangout right before. Don't worry, we'll get that answered for you. But thank you so much for attending, and hopefully you'll be able to take these 5 items into consideration whenever you're looking for employment in the U.S. as an international student. Thank you.